The DJI R3 is an incredibly capable drone, and after flying it for a while now, I wanted to share with you some tips and tricks that can make it even better, along with some features that you maybe didn't know existed, such as the best way to place the DJI RC2 antennas for the strongest connection, tips to get more unique active tracking clips, what Nifty Mode is, hand landing tips and more. Let's jump right in. Now, if you're new around here, welcome to the channel. This is the Drone Creative, the channel that helps you learn more about flying drones, from the basics to the most advanced techniques to help you get better looking images and more cinematic videos with your drone. So if you would like to see more of that, then please consider subscribing, and when you're down there, make sure to check the notification bell so that you will be alerted when my new videos are released. It would be greatly appreciated. All right, let's dive in to tip number one. And this tip is great for increasing your productivity when you're out flying and allow you to access certain functions of the DJI R3 quickly and easily without having to dive into the individual menus, and that is button customization. On the DJI RC2, you have two customizable function buttons on the back of the controller. If you have the DJI RC2, you will have one customizable function button on the front of the controller. And these are called customizable function buttons because you can customize what they do when you press them. So to do this, you want to tap the settings menu button on the top right of the controller screen. You want to go across to control, and then if you scroll down to button customization and click into it, you can see that you can customize what happens when you press either the C1 or C2 button. So if I click into the C1 button here, you can see we can set things such as recenter or tilt down gimbal, change between follow and FPV mode, turn on the auxiliary light, enable cruise control, two features that we will get into later in this video. Tapping across to camera, you can see we can have it turn on or off auto exposure lock. You can have it increase or decrease exposure compensation, and you can have it bring up the camera settings menu by pressing it. And whatever option you choose, this is what will happen when you press this button. Now, something you may not know is that the DJI R3 has an auxiliary light on the bottom of the drone, and this can be useful for illuminating the ground underneath it, especially when landing in low light conditions. Now, to be able to turn on and off this light, you need to map it to one of the function buttons we just discussed. So you want to go back to the settings menu, go back to button customization, and this time I'm going to go into the C2 button. And under control, you will see the option for auxiliary light. Now, if you set auxiliary light to one of your function buttons, whenever you press that function button once, the auxiliary light underneath the drone will come on, and when you press it again, the auxiliary light underneath will turn off. Now, another function that you may not know about with the DJI R3 is the fact that you can rotate the gimbal left or right by 5 degrees without actually having to rotate the drone. And this can be useful if you ever so slightly need to recenter the gimbal on your subject to make sure it's perfectly in the center of your frame. Now, to do this, all you need to do is press and hold on the controller screen, and then if you drag your finger left, you can see you can rotate the gimbal left, and if you drag your finger right, you can see you can rotate the gimbal right. And again, this is happening without the drone rotating in the air. Now, another super useful feature on the DJI R3, especially if you struggle doing complex drone moves, maybe you just find it difficult to make multiple inputs on the controller, or when you do, the movement just ends up being jerky, is cruise control. Now, cruise control can help you do these complex drone moves because you can start a drone movement, enable cruise control, and much like cruise control in a car, the drone will continue to do that movement even when you let off the joysticks. And you can use this to have the drone do the move for you, or you can lock one or two inputs into the controller, let's say a push forward rise up, and then once the drone is doing that movement for you, you can focus on controlling things like the gimbal to keep your subject centered as it flies forward and upwards, and this means you just have to concentrate on making less inputs on the controller itself. So let's take a look at how to do just that. The first thing we need to do is map cruise control to one of the function buttons. So again, let's go back to the settings menu and then choose either the C1 or C2 button, and under control, you want to select cruise control. Now what you want to do is go back to camera view, and for a demonstration, let's do a push forward rise up while moving the gimbal down to keep the subject centered. But this is a complex move that requires 3 inputs on the controller. So let's have cruise control do 2 of the inputs for us. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start flying forwards and upwards slowly, And once I have the movement the way I like it, I'm going to press that function button we had mapped to cruise control. And now you can see cruise control is enabled and the drone is flying forwards and upwards for us. Now my hands are completely off the controller. The drone is flying forward and rising up by itself. So now I can focus on the gimbal only to keep my subject centered as it is flying forward and rising up, meaning I can get a super smooth drone move without having to worry about making too many inputs on the controller. Now to stop cruise control, all you need to do is press the same function button on the back of the controller and you will see cruise control disabled appear on the controller screen, and then the drone will stop moving. Now before we move on to the next tip, I just wanted to quickly talk about today's video sponsor, which is Epidemic Sound. If you are looking for the best music and sound effects for your drone videos, then I personally use and recommend Epidemic Sound. They have over 40,000 tracks in a range of genres and playlists that are easy to browse and search to find that perfect song. They also have 90,000 diverse sound effects, so if you need the sound of waves crashing, a waterfall, etc., they have you covered. They also own 100% of all their own music and sound effects, and because they are royalty free, you are safe to use them in your projects, even when uploading to social media such as Instagram and YouTube. One of my favourite new features of Epidemic Sound is their Soundmatch tool. If you're like me and spend hours endlessly searching for that perfect track, well, Soundmatch now speeds up this process by suggesting the perfect song for your drone video in a matter of seconds. Simply upload your video and get matching music recommendations in no time. The tool automatically analyzes your video's tone, mood and rhythm, delivering a curated selection of music that takes your video to the next level. And it has been a game changer when finding music for my drone projects. If you would like to give Soundmatch and Epidemic Sound a try, you can use my personal link in the description down below to get a 1-month free trial and see how Epidemic Sound and their Soundmatch tool can help you find the perfect tracks for your drone video. Now, another way I have found that you can use cruise control to really elevate your drone clips and get some really unique tracking clips is to use cruise control while doing active tracking to be able to make your drone move in ways that you just can't do with the normal active tracking mode. Now, to do this, you first want to find a subject such as yourself that you want to track. You want to draw a box over that subject, and then you want to make sure the drone is in spotlight mode. Then what you want to do is you want to start the drone move that you want the drone to do as it tracks your subject. So in this example, I'm going to start flying backwards while rotating around to the left. Once you have the movement you like and you're happy with it, enable cruise control by pressing that function button again, and then start moving or have your subject start moving. And now the drone will do the move that you've logged in with cruise control, but it will also keep your subject centered to get you these awesome looking clips. Now, when it comes to obstacle avoidance, you have 3 modes with the DJI R3. You have off, where there is no obstacle avoidance. You have brake, where the drone will brake and stop in the air when it detects an obstacle. And you have bypass mode, where the drone will automatically fly around an obstacle and continue on its way. But did you know that when you put the drone into bypass mode, if you scroll down on the safety settings menu, you actually have 2 bypass options, normal and Nifty. So what makes Nifty bypass mode different from normal bypass mode? When you use Nifty bypass mode, the area of protection is reduced. So the drone will allow itself to bypass obstacles with a closer proximity. It will also bypass obstacles with a more subtle attitude change so that it can try and fly smoother as it bypasses them obstacles. Now, something that's really important for you to know if using this mode, and you get a warning when you change into it, is that there is a higher or an increased collision risk when using this mode. And you will see the prompt appear on the screen, which tells you to use it with caution, and you will have to press OK on that notification before you can use this Nifty mode. Now, something else that is super useful to know with the DJI R3 is that the included Activetrack 5.0 can lose sight of a subject it's tracking and then pick it back up again when it reappears. So if you're tracking yourself walking around an area and you walk behind an obstacle, such as in this example where I walk behind this small ruin, well, the drone will actually wait in the air, and then when you reappear, it will automatically detect you again and continue tracking, and then as you move around after you've reappeared, the drone will continue to track you. Another incredibly useful feature on the DJI R3 is file naming. Now you might think this doesn't sound like that big of a feature, but if you're someone like me who loves to be super organized and you spend a lot of time after you've been out filming for a day, organizing your clips into individual folders depending on the locations you have been to, then this file naming feature will save you so much time. In the settings menu, under the camera heading, if you scroll down, you will see a new option called custom folder naming. And when you press this, you can name a folder. And then every clip you capture with your drone will be saved into a folder with that name. Now, something else that the DJI R3 has that you might not know about and can come in really useful is ISO and shutter speed priority modes. So the two video capturing modes that you might be aware of is automatic mode, where the drone will automatically control ISO and shutter speed to make sure that you have a properly exposed image. And if you tap the auto button on the bottom right of the screen, you will change into Pro or manual mode, where you can then tap on the bottom right of the screen and manually control the ISO and shutter speed to control the drone's exposure. But there is also two additional modes, which are ISO and shutter speed priority. And what this allows you to do is have the drone automatically control either the ISO or shutter speed, and then you can manually control the other value. So if I want to manually control the ISO, I can tap auto next to shutter speed, and then the drone will automatically control the shutter speed while leaving the ISO set at the value that I manually set it to. Or if I want to manually control the shutter speed and have the drone automatically control the ISO, I can deselect the auto icon next to the shutter speed, and then I can select the auto icon next to ISO, and now the drone will automatically control the ISO, but leave the shutter speed at the setting I have it set to. And a really nice feature when you set ISO to auto is that it can increment in increments of 10, so really subtle increments upwards or downwards for the ISO. Whereas if you're controlling it manually, you can see that you can only increase it in larger values. So you go from 100 to 200, up to 400, up to 800, whereas in auto, it can increment in smaller amounts, so the drone can automatically adjust it in a more subtle way. Now, something else worth knowing is that the DJI R3 actually has two return to home modes. And you can change between these by going into the settings menu and under the safety heading, scrolling down to the return to home option, and you can see preset and optimal. Now, preset is the traditional return to home mode, where you can set a return to home altitude, and that slider is just below the return to home option. And you want to set this higher than any of the obstacles around you. Because when return to home engages, maybe you lose signal to the drone, or the drone has a low battery and decides to return to home automatically, the drone will rise up to that altitude you have set, fly back to the home point, which is where you took the drone off from, and then automatically land. However, if you change to optimal, this is the advanced return to home mode. And in this mode, the drone will automatically fly an optimal return to home route, which means that it will automatically determine a height to rise up to. So it's not going to be a height you set, it's going to be a height that the drone automatically deems necessary to get back to you safely. It's going to fly back to you automatically, and it will also use the obstacle avoiding system to fly around any of the obstacles as it returns back to you. Now, another tip I have is to know about the signal lost options. So when you're in the safety menu, if you continue to scroll down, you will see an option saying advanced safety settings. And when you tap into this, you will see 3 signal lost options. Now, these options allow you to control what happens if your controller loses signal to your R3. So you can change between the drone returning to home, you can have the drone descend and land where it's currently at whenever you lose signal, or you can have it hover in place. So why might you want to change these options? Well, if you're flying in an area like a forest where the trees are overhead, you might not want the drone to return to home, because if the drone engages return to home due to a lost signal, the drone could potentially fly up into them trees' branches and crash. So you might want to change them options in that scenario. So you can change this to descend, and then if you lose signal, the drone will instead just land safely on the ground. Or you can have it set to hover. So if you lose signal, the drone will hover in place, and then you can simply walk towards it until you regain connection, and then you can continue flying. Now, one of the things to bear in mind is that the drone will return to home to what's called a home point. And that home point is set when you take the drone off. So when return to home engages, the drone will fly back to where you took it off from, unless you update the home point. Now, this is useful if you're having the drone tracking yourself. Maybe you took the drone off from a boat on a lake and you've moved from where you took the drone off. You will want to update that home point so the drone will come back to where you are now currently at instead of where you took the drone off from. But did you know that when you update the home point, you can actually set the home point to where the drone is currently at or where the controller is currently at? So to update the home point, you want to go to the settings menu, and then under the safety heading, you want to scroll down until you see the update home point option. Now, when you press this option, by default, the drone will update the home point to where the drone currently is. But if you want the drone's home point to update to where you are currently at and holding the controller, then you want to tap the controller icon on the top right of that window, and then you will see the home point changes to where the controller is currently at. Then you simply want to press OK, and now that home point will be updated to where the controller is. But please note that this is a fixed home point. If you update it to where your controller currently is, the point will be fixed to where you are currently standing with the controller. If you then move again, you will need to go back and update that home point. Another really useful thing to know is that the DJI RC2 actually comes with 32 gigabytes of internal storage. And this is super useful for doing things like screen recordings. With the old DJI RC, you had to put a memory card into the bottom of the controller, but with the DJI RC2, you have that internal storage allowing you to save screen recordings to it without inserting a micro SD card. Now, to do a screen recording on the DJI RC2, all you need to do is swipe down from the top right of the screen, and then you will see this record screen option. And when you press it, the screen will start recording. To stop a screen recording, you simply want to swipe down on the top right of the screen again, and then press the same button to stop a recording. So once the screen recordings are stored to the internal storage of the controller, how do we transfer it off onto your computer? Well, to do this, all you need to do is attach your controller to your computer using a USB-C connection on the bottom of the controller. And then once you turn the controller on, you will see this appear on your computer. And once you navigate to it, you want to go to a folder called Movies. And within that folder, you will see the screen recordings that you captured with your controller. Now, something you can also do with the DJI RC2 that you could also do with the DJI RC is record audio to them screen recordings. So that means if you're wearing a microphone like I am here and you're doing a screen recording, that audio will be stored over the top of the screen recordings. Now, unfortunately, this won't work for the drone's camera view, but it can be useful if you want to do things like narration over a screen recording. Maybe you're doing inspection work and you want to store voice recordings over the top of that screen recording as you make points about what you're seeing. So it's useful to be able to do this feature on the DJI RC2. Now, to do this, you will first need a microphone which has a USB-C connection. I am using the DJI mic system, which is a wireless system that allows me to have a transmitter connected to the controller, and then this little microphone which is currently attached to me will transmit the audio wirelessly to the controller. Now, once you have attached your microphone via the USB-C connection on the bottom of the DJI RC2, any screen recordings you then capture with the controller will have the audio from the microphone synced over the top. And this is an example of how it sounds when you record audio over the top of your drone's screen recording. Now, something else that you can do with the DJI R3, which is incredibly useful, is use waypoints. Now, if you don't know, waypoints allow you to mark position points on a map, and you can do that before you go out to a location, or you can do that with your drone in the air to mark them points, and I'll show you how you use them two methods in a second. And then once you have that route plugged in, you can start the drone flying that route automatically, and the drone can repeat that route over and over again. So let's first take a look at how you create a waypoint route using the map, and this can be done before you even get out to location. So with your drone on and the controller on, you want to expand the map view by tapping the map on the bottom left of the controller screen. Then you want to tap this waypoints icon to go into waypoint mode. Now, wherever you tap on the screen, you will add a waypoint. So let's tap on the screen to add our first waypoint, and you will see a small symbol with the number 1 in it, and this is because this is our first waypoint. Now, if I tap into that waypoint, or if I press the 1 on the bottom of the screen, you can see we can set some parameters for this waypoint. So we can set a camera action, and if I scroll along the bottom, you can see I can have it do things like take an image, start recording or stop recording. We can change the altitude. We can change how fast the drone is flying. We can change our heading, so we can have the drone point towards the route it is flying, or as it flies the route, we can have it point towards a point of interest or subject, and we can change our tilt angle. So let's go back and let's now add 2 more waypoints. So I'm going to add a second one here and a third one here. And you can see as I do this, it's showing the route that the drone will fly as you add these points. Now, if you were creating this waypoint mission at home, you will want to save it so you can load it when you get out on location. So to save it, you want to press this icon here and then press the save button. And now this will have saved the waypoint mission to your controller. Then when you're out on location, you can simply press the icon again and press on the waypoint mission that you want to load, and you can see your waypoint mission has now been loaded. Now the last thing you will want to set before you start the drone flying is the global parameters, and you can do that by pressing this icon here. And in here you can change things like the global speed, that's the speed the drone will fly along the route. You can select which camera you want the drone to be using. So on the Air 3 you can have the 1x wide angle camera or the 3x tele camera. You can choose what happens at the end of the waypoint mission, what happens when the signal is lost, and the starting point for your waypoint mission. Then when you're ready to start your waypoint mission with the drone in the air, simply hit go, and the drone will now start flying this route automatically. Now there is actually a second way to set up a waypoint mission, and that's by using the drone in the air to mark waypoints. So what I've done is I've moved my drone into the first position I want for my first waypoint. So again, I'm going to tap the waypoints icon to go into waypoint mode. And then to mark this position as my first waypoint, all I need to do is tap the C1 button on the back of the controller. Now if I go into map view and move my drone out of the way, you can see it's marked that waypoint as my first waypoint. So what I'm going to do is I'm now going to fly my drone into the position I want for the second waypoint, which is here. And then by pressing that C1 button again, you can see I've added another waypoint. And if I just add a third one by moving the drone around, I'm happy with that position, and if I tap the C1 button again, you can see we've added a third waypoint. And if I go back into map view, you can now see this route has been added by simply using the drone in the air to mark these waypoints by tapping that C1 button when the drone is in the position I want. Now something to be aware of when using waypoints is that the bypass obstacle avoidance mode does not work regardless if you have it turned on or not. So if I go to settings here and under the safety heading, change my obstacle avoidance to bypass. And take a look at this waypoint mission I have set up. I have this waypoint mission set to basically fly through this bridge to show you that the bypass obstacle avoidance doesn't work, because if it did, the drone would automatically fly around it. Now if I hit go, once the drone moves into position, you can see that it's going to start flying towards this little bridge. But you can see as the drone gets close to the bridge, you see a message saying obstacle detected, waypoint flight suspended. So it doesn't matter if you have bypass obstacle avoidance turned on, if the drone detects an obstacle, the waypoint mission will stop. Now the next really useful feature is a feature that you might not know about called offline maps. So if like me you tend to fly in quite remote places where there is literally no mobile phone signal at all, what you might find tends to happen is your map view won't load because your phone has no signal, so you can't pair your controller to it to have them maps download. But you can actually store the maps offline to your controller so that even if you're out flying in remote places, you can still use the map view. Now to do this, you want to go to the home screen of your controller, you want to press Profile, and then you want to scroll down and press the option called Offline Maps. Then what you can do is you can start to zoom in on a location. Now the white box you see in the middle of the screen is the area of the map that will be downloaded and stored to your controller. So when you use this option, you can't just download the entire United Kingdom, for example, or the entire country you're in. You can only download a small portion of the map. And that's what this little white rectangle is. That's the area that will be downloaded to your controller. Now once you have this centered over the area you want to download, you will see information about how much space this is going to take up on the internal storage or micro SD card inserted into your DJI RC. And once you're happy, you want to press this small download icon. And then this map will be downloaded and stored to your controller so that when you are flying in remote locations, you can still use that map view. Now a feature I'm always surprised to find that a lot of people don't even know exists is the compass view on your controller screen. Now, to access the compass view, you first want to bring up your map. So if it's minimized, you want to press the small minimize map icon in the bottom left of the screen to get your map view. And then on the bottom right of this little window, you will see the compass button. So when you press this, you will then change into compass view. Now this compass view has a lot of really useful information available to you. So firstly, it's a compass. So you can see the heading of your drone. So if I rotate the drone around here, you can now see we're changing from facing north to facing west. The next useful feature of the compass is the horizon. So you will see this little blue line going across the center of the compass view. And this is actually the drone's horizon. So if I fly forwards here, you can see that blue line moves up the compass. And that is because the drone is starting to pitch forward. And if I fly backwards, you can see that blue line comes down, and that is because the drone is now pitching backwards. If I fly to the left, you can see the horizon rotates to the left, and if I fly to the right, you can see the horizon rotates to the right. And this is showing you the horizon relative to the drone. Now this can be useful to see just how much tilt the aircraft has in the air, specifically when flying on windy days. You might be flying on a day where it's calm where you are standing, but really windy higher up in the air, and you might not be aware of just how much the drone is having to tilt or pitch in the air to stay stable. So by looking at this horizon, you can see just what angle the drone is and how much it's moving around in the air. Now the next super useful piece of information you can see on this view is where the home point is and where you are standing. So if you take a look at the center of the compass view, this is where your drone currently is, and this shows you the direction your drone is pointing. Now you will see two smaller symbols at the bottom of this view. The first is the small H icon, and this is your home point, where the drone will return to if return to home engages. The little blue icon next to that is where I am currently standing. And if you take a look at this little blue icon, you can also see a direction arrow, and that is the direction I am currently facing. Now this little icon of me can also change to green if I am facing the drone. So if I now turn to face the drone, you can see the icon of where I am standing is lit up green, and if I turn away from the drone, it changes to blue. So this is useful to know that you are facing towards your drone so that you get the strongest connection possible between the controller and the drone. Now you can change the compass to center on the controller or to center on the drone. So currently, as mentioned, the compass is centered on the drone, but if I press this small icon here on the top left of the compass, you can see the compass now centers on where the controller is and therefore where I am currently standing. And if I turn around with the controller, then the compass also turns around. To recenter on the drone, you simply want to press the same icon in the top left, and now the compass recenters towards the drone. Now the last piece of super useful information that you will see on this compass view is the obstacles the drone is detecting and how close in proximity they are to the drone. So if I start flying towards this little bridge again, you can see as I start getting close to it, on the compass screen, you can start to see some orange and red lines. Now, these lines are showing you the obstacles that the drone is detecting. If they are orange, they are quite close, and if they change to red, that shows very close obstacles, which is this little bridge in front of the drone, that it's detecting. So this can be useful to work out how close obstacles are in proximity to your drone when flying it around. Now another useful feature on the Air 3 is the ability to adjust the max speeds, and you can adjust them independently for Cine mode, normal mode and sport mode. So if you fly your drone around in Cine mode and you still think it's flying very fast, you'd like it to fly slower, you can actually slow them speeds down. Now to do that, you want to go to the settings menu, you want to go to control, and then if you scroll down and tap into gain and expo tuning, you can see we have options to change our max horizontal speed, max ascent speed, max descent speed and max angular velocity. And again, as mentioned, we can do this for Cine, normal and sport mode. So the next trick I would like to show you is a technique for hand landing the DJI Air 3. Because unlike other DJI drones, the Air 3 is actually quite tricky to hand land. Unlike other DJI drones, where you simply put your hand underneath the drone and hold down on the joystick or tap the auto land function on the interface, for some reason the Air 3 won't allow you to do this. So if I put my hand underneath the drone and hold down on the joystick, you can see that no matter what I do, the drone just won't come down to land. Or if I put my hand underneath and tap the auto land function, you can see I get a message saying area under aircraft unsuitable for landing, control aircraft to land in a safe area. So to get round this, what I recommend doing is first keeping your hand away from underneath the drone, Tapping the auto land function on the controller to start it auto landing, and then as it starts to lower, simply put your hand underneath and catch it, and it will lower down into your hand. And that's the technique I have been using to hand catch or hand land my DJI R3. Now the reason why it's difficult to hand catch the DJI R3 is because it has a feature called landing zone detection. Now what this feature does is whenever you start a auto land procedure, or you hold down in that joystick for your drone to lower down towards the ground and land, the drone will actually pause for a second and quickly check that the ground underneath it is suitable for landing. If it detects obstacles underneath, or if you're flying over water, for example, then you will get this message that will prevent you from being able to land it. So what you have to do in them scenarios is move your drone to a suitable landing location, try the auto land feature again, and if it detects that there's no obstacles underneath or that you're not over water, then the drone will successfully land. This is a safety feature to prevent you from landing in locations that might damage your drone. Now something you might only know if you have had the misfortune of damaging a propeller on your R3 and need to replace it, is that the 4 propellers on your drone are not identical. The diagonals are the same, so there's 2 different types of propellers on this drone. Now to make this easy and to know which propeller goes on which corner of your drone, on the packet of the spare propellers, you will actually see a small graphic which shows you what position to place the propellers. But if you don't have the packet that you took the propeller out of, there's another way to know which propeller goes where. The propeller on the top right of the drone and bottom left of the drone have a small white circle on the top of the propeller, and this is to show you that they go in them locations. Whereas the propellers in the top left and bottom right of the drone don't have that small white circle. And this should help you know which propeller goes where when you're trying to replace them on your drone. But DJI has actually went a step further, and on the R3 it's actually impossible to install the propellers in the wrong location. If you try to install the top right propeller on the top left, for example, you won't actually be able to do it. You won't be able to push the propeller in and turn it. You will only be able to attach the correct propeller in the correct position. So if you're feeling resistance when you try to push the propeller in to lock it in place, that's probably because it's in the wrong corner of the drone. So try it on the opposite corner, and then you should be able to turn it and lock it into place. This is very useful to know when you're out on location if you need to replace a damaged propeller. Now when it comes to looking after your drone's batteries and making sure they last as long as possible, something useful to remember is the batteries that come with your drone only have a finite amount of power cycles. So if you have multiple batteries, if you bought the Fly More kit, it's very important that you don't just keep using the same battery over and over again and never using the other ones that you may have, because that's putting excess wear on that one battery. Instead, you should spread the power cycles across all the batteries you have. And there's a really useful feature that you might not know about on the R3 that allows you to see how many power cycles the battery you have inserted into the drone has, so you can make sure that you're keeping the power cycles equal between all the batteries you have. Now to access this, you want to tap the settings button on the top right of the screen. Go to the safety heading, and if you scroll down to where you see battery info and tap it, you will then see your battery cycle count on this screen. Now something that always surprises me that not a lot of people know is that you can actually change between photo and video mode using the buttons on the back of the controller, instead of having to use the interface on the controller itself. So as you can see, I am currently in video mode, but if I press the take image button on the back of the controller, you can see that the drone switches into photo mode. And now because we're in photo mode, if I press the start or stop video recording button on the controller, the drone will change into video mode. So this can be useful for speeding up switching between them modes, because if I want to capture an image, I simply press the capture image button once to change into that mode, then I can press it again to capture that image. And then if I now want to take a video quickly, instead of having to touch the screen on the controller, I just press the start stop recording video button once, now I'm in video mode, and then I press it again to start capturing video. Now something that you might not be aware of, and I know so many people this is caught out, is that resolution and FPS does not carry across between modes. So if you set up your resolution to 4K and your FPS is set to what you want it in video mode, and you change across to do quick shots, them settings won't carry across. The resolution and FPS is set independently for each of them modes. I know so many people who have went out for a day, captured lots of quick shots or master shots, and come home only to find out it was recording in 1080p the entire time. So let me show you what I mean. Currently, I have my video mode set to 4K 30 FPS. But if I go to change into quick shots mode, you can see when I change to quick shots mode, the resolution now changes to 1080p. And you might just presume that because you set 4K in video mode, this carries across, start capturing lots of quick shots, and then find out after the fact that they were in 1080p. So make sure when you change mode on the drone that you go in and set your desired resolution and frame rate so you won't be disappointed with the results. Now the DJI R3 comes with style parameters, which allows you to change how sharp the image is and allows you to adjust the noise reduction being applied to your footage. To access these settings, simply tap the settings icon in the top right of the screen, go to the camera heading, and then when you scroll down, you will see an option called Style. Now if you press this, you will see an option appear to adjust the sharpness, and you can increase the sharpness of the image or decrease it, and you will see an option to increase or decrease the noise reduction on the drone. Now another feature that's really useful on the DJI RC2 is the ability to mute the sounds coming from the controller. So if you have a second camera capturing an event or capturing a sequence take place, and the drone's flying in close proximity to obstacles, you might hear this noise, which is the obstacle detection on the DJI RC2, giving me an audible warning that the drone is close to them obstacles. But you might not want to hear this beeping if you're capturing footage with a second camera. You can actually mute the noises coming from the DJI RC2 by swiping down in the top right of the controller, then pressing this mute button. Now, even though the obstacle detection is still working, still detecting them obstacles, you can hear the controller is no longer making a beeping noise. Now, a nice feature that the R3 does for you to help you get more stable footage and keep your subjects in the center of the frame when using that 3x telecamera is it actually automatically slows down the rotation speed from the speed it uses in the 1x camera to the 3x telecamera. So to show you this in action, here is a comparison between the rotation speed with the 1x camera and the 3x telecamera. Now the DJI RC2 that comes with the R3 comes with these new two fold-out antennas, but what position should you put these to get the strongest connection between your controller and drone as possible? You want to adjust these antennas according to the position of your drone. And you want to avoid flying directly above the tip of the antennas to maintain a strong wireless connection. The two antennas should always be perpendicular to your drone. And what should you not do to ensure that you get the strongest connection possible to the R3 at all times and prevent signal loss or losing signal to your drone? Well, as mentioned, you should never point the antennas directly towards the drone. The antennas should be adjusted so that the direction of them is perpendicular to your drone. The other thing you should never do is cross the antennas. This will lead to poor performance. So to achieve the best signal, the antennas should always be parallel to each other. So there you have it, 35 tips and tricks for the DJI R3 that should help you get more from this incredible little drone. Now, before you go, if you liked this video and you learned something new, please let me know by giving me the thumbs up and clicking that like button down below. And if you love all things drones and want to know how to get more cinematic videos and better images from your drone, then I recommend you check out my channel where I have a ton of other content to help you level up your drone game. If you don't want to miss any of my upcoming videos, then make sure to click that subscribe button down below. And while you're down there, make sure to select the notification bell so that you will be alerted when one of my new videos is released. And if you want to stick around and watch a few more drone tutorials now, here's a few I personally recommend. I'll not keep you back any further. Thank you so much for watching. I'll catch you over there.